Today we're going to talk about prospecting. Prospecting is part of the sales process, the basic sales process. It's the second piece after establishing your market and your market size. So what is prospecting? Essentially, it's the act of identifying leads for the sales process. What this means is that prospecting doesn't usually lead to a closure. You're identifying someone that you can now start the sales conversation. The classic sales conversation that we've talked about when we talk about pipelines. This is identifying people that are going to go into the top of the pipeline. So remember, the sales pipeline looks like this. And the first thing might be a conversation that you have. Prospecting happens up here, and we're dumping people into the pipeline. So it's how do I get people attracted to learning more about my product? That's an important concept because if you don't do that, obviously no one is going to want to hear about your product and you're not going to sell anything. So prospecting is the very beginning of identifying these individual leads. It helps a lot if you are focused on a market, if you've identified your markets and you're not just sort of willy-nilly going out and trying to find people, because the people that you're going to want to sell to in a certain market are going to have various behaviors and they're going to hang out in various places. So if you're smart about where those people are, prospecting becomes a lot easier. Also, there are free and pay options, which we'll talk about in a second. These are all ways of prospecting. There are free and pay options in order to accomplish prospecting. Some things you can do for free, some things you have to pay for, and we'll get into what those are. Also, you're going to want to track your success or failure. If you don't know what you're good at and what you're bad at, then you don't know where you're spending money and time, and you don't know where you're efficient. So what this means here is, how many leads did I get per prospect? And we'll talk about that in a moment as well. This is often a marketing function. Prospecting is often done by marketing people in companies that have a lot of employees, but if you're an entrepreneur and you're the only person, you're going to have to do it yourself. And also try and track prospects all the way through close. So remember, if prospecting means dumping people into the top of the pipeline, how many of those close? How many turn out to be dollars to the company? That's important because then you're going to go back and figure out, so maybe you were great at finding prospects in some areas, but none of them bought your product. And you weren't great at finding prospects in other areas, but a bunch of those people bought your product. It doesn't matter that you weren't good at it. Those are the only people buying your product. So what really matters is which prospects you found, how many of them closed. That's tracking it all the way through close. And we'll talk more about that in another video. So let's look at types of prospecting. There are lots and lots of ways. This is by no means a complete list. But these are ranked in order of, I think, in terms of effectiveness for me personally. So it's things like your local ecosystem. That just means going out and about and talking to the people you do in your everyday life, in your town, and at your job, and talking to folks about your product. That tends to be very effective because you're usually personal and passionate about your product. Referrals from your network. These are folks out in your network that you would use to get a job or that you would leverage in your everyday business. Oftentimes those folks will refer people to your business. That can be a powerful thing. And then word of mouth is what it is. It's people who heard about your product or used it telling other people. That's a very effective way to find new prospects. Executive movement has been helpful for me. That means somebody who you used to use your product at one company moves and goes to another company. They're a very ripe target to be interested in your product again at their new company. Web referrals and email marketing. This is folks who find your website and fill out a form and ask, hey, yeah, I'd like someone to contact me. And then email marketing, we'll make a separate video about that. That's essentially you're buying lists of email addresses and you're sending out an email with an action associated with it, asking that person to do if they're interested in your product. Then of course you have SEO, SEM, and paid search, optimizing your website to show up high on search lists, search engine marketing, paying to market yourself using search engines, and then paid search, paying for placement in various places on Google or on other search engines. So we'll make individual videos about each one of those. Trade shows are often helpful. You can walk around a trade show floor and it's all people who are interested in the same concepts. Lead gen services, there are companies you can hire that will do nothing but find prospects for you. Cold calling I find sort of ineffective, but you certainly can cold call businesses or potential customers. And then social networking, thus far I think is unproven. I wouldn't be surprised if that climbs the list if we find better ways to use social networking. But remember, with each one of these, when we measure effectiveness, we want to measure leads per prospects. So let's say email marketing, you've got 10,000 prospects and 1,000 of them ask for more information or want a conversation, that's a 10% success rate. That would be super high for email marketing. But nonetheless, that's how you measure success. The reason I put these high on the list is because for every conversation you have, you're often creating interest up here. These tend to have you talk to fewer people, but they have a higher percentage of prospects. So that's sort of an introduction to the mathematical concepts around how to track prospecting, and also just to the action of prospecting itself. It's identifying leads for the sales process. It's filling the top of the pipeline.